Hi, and welcome to Rock and Metal Invasion. My name is Steve. Coming up on the show today, I'm doing my top 40 bands that have 4 letters in their names. So basically, if the band name is just 4 letters long, it qualifies. And so what I've done is I've ranked the bands that have just 4 letters in their name from 40 through to number 1. Now, in typical Rock and Metal Invasion style, it was initially just going to be my top 10. And then I thought, I have a few honorable mentions. And I thought, I'll just make it a top 15. And then before you know it, I had like 40 bands. So this is my top 40 bands that have just 4 letters in their name. So yeah, there's quite a few, and I've pretty much got at least one physical thing. There's maybe one exception, but I can show you a CD or record of all of these bands. And like it's very difficult to, the difference between a band that's 33 and 27 or something like that is pretty minor. On another day, they might even swap positions. It all just depends. And of course, some of these bands do. I'm still discovering, like I might not necessarily have heard all of their albums. But anyway, let's get into it because there's 40 bands to get into. So coming in at number 40, I've gone with more new wave of British heavy metal. So this is Kenny Cox on the cover here. This is their second album, their final album. This is Blood and Thunder. This is their second album. They had a different vocalist for this one. Kenny Cox unfortunately passed away in 2022, but he went on to be in Mammoth, and it's a really pretty solid album, that one. Not so familiar with the first one, but pretty good. So let's move on now. So number 39. So number 39, fairly obscure one. This is a band called Riff. I think they're a UK band, hard rock band, came out late 80s, I think. 1989. This particular one came out on RCA, but it's also being released on Music for Nations. I like the song. The first couple of songs, No Mercy and Elaine, aren't too bad. But not one of my favourites, but still it's making my top 40 of bands with 4 letters in their name. So yeah, there's a few good songs on it. All right, number 38, Maisie, I think that's how you say his name. He's an Italian guitarist. This is Fire in the Rain. This came out in 87, I think. And what's interesting about this, it has the title song Fire in the Rain gets remade by the singer. So the person who sings on this album is a guy called Bernie Kay, and he ends up taking that song to a band that he forms later on called Total Eclipse and does a version of it. It's actually really good. And Bernie Kay used to be in the band Sound Barrier as well. So this is not bad. I probably prefer this one. This one is Downtown Dreamers, Maisie again. This one, it says the hottest rock guitar find of 1987 returns with a brand new band. So yes, they actually came out in 88, I think. And he's got a new band. He's got different vocalists. This is David Fairfault, who's probably most well known. I don't know. He's been in a few different bands. Prior to this, he was in the band Hawk, and Hawk almost could have qualified actually in my top 40. He was the vocalist for them, and of course, Maisie's done some instrumental albums as well. So that was 38. 37, another UK hard rock band. This is Ya Ya. This is their first album, Scarred, and it's got Leah Hart on vocals for this one. He, of course, goes on to be in Fastway. But on the second album, they have a different vocalist. And I remember seeing this back in the day and having no idea it was like a hard rock sort of album. It's not super heavy, but it definitely qualifies as hard rock. But I felt like the album cover is quite deceptive. You can probably tell a little bit more by looking at the back. You see that, maybe they look like hard rock guys there. But front cover, it's interesting, but I'm not sure it's the best choice. But both those albums are pretty good. I'm not sure which one I like the most, to be honest. It's a bit light. It's not very heavy, but there are some good tracks on there. AOR, sort of hard rock, mid-80s. Mid-80s albums, those ones. All right, number 36. We're going to a German band now. Now, this is a band who, talking about covers, I saw the front cover and thought, oh yeah, this looks like something I could get into. Which, when you look at the front cover, you might think, really, you could get into that? Well, yeah, they look a bit silly, but this is I can look at that and know straight away that this is some hair metal stuff here. Yeah, probably the fashion choices are a little bit. Perhaps, I mean, maybe it was cool back in the day. I'm not sure, but it's an interesting look. There's like skateboarding kind of gear there, and yeah, Vice German band made for pleasure. I've even got who has this? Who owns it? Who owns a Vice 12-inch single? But I do. Feel My Body. Yeah, it comes with the bonus track "Rocking All Over the World," which is an original song by them. And yeah, they did do a second album as well. I don't think this one was quite as good. Michael Wagner, I think, actually produced their first one. Second Excess. It's okay, but yeah, not. I don't think it's good. They look a lot more serious, don't they? This is quite a change of look for them from that first album. The back cover there, quite a different look. But of course, it's a different times. It's like a couple of years later. It might be 1990, I'd say. All right, now we're moving on to. So that was number 36. Vice, number 35 on my top 40 bands with 4 letters in their name. We're now going to a band called Envy. Now, they only put out the one album. It's female fronted. Gina Stahl, I think that's how you say her name. Gina Stahl is on this album. Now, she used to be in Poison Dollies and then also before this band, and then also she goes on to play for Vixen. What's interesting too is this album is produced by Dee Snider from Twisted Sister, and after he produced this album, he then took a Poison Dollies song and put it on their Love Is for Suckers album. I think actually that was the song that they used, Love Is for Suckers, which was originally a Poison Dollies song. But yeah, it's a pretty good album actually. This one, it's sort of underrated, I feel. But yeah, so that's number 35. Number 34. Now, this is another underrated band, possibly. This is Fist. And this one here I'm showing you is Danger Zone. But they put out a few albums in the early to mid 80s. Really good, solid hard rock. I probably need to listen to them a little bit more, to be fair. I haven't given them enough of a listen. But what I have heard, I like. So Fist at number 34. And I think they're still touring because I know Dan from Off the Charts went to see them in concert not that long ago. So they're still going strong. Number 33. This is interesting band because the UK hard rock came out in the early 80s. They're probably most well known for a couple of members in the band who went on to bigger things. So the band is Girl, and this is She Agreed, this album. They put out 2 albums. But yeah, Phil Lewis, the vocalist, goes on, of course, to be in LA Guns. And the other Phil Collin, goes on to be in Def Leppard. There they are. So that's Girl at 33. At number 32, I went with ASAP, Adrian Smith and Project. I actually quite like this album. So this is the album that he formed after leaving Iron Maiden. And yeah, it's quite good. I quite like it. It's grown on me too over time. So of course it is just the one album, but yeah, I like it. So they're gonna come in at number 32 on my list here. Coming in at number 31, Cooney, Looking for Action. This is his second album. Now, Cooney's like a Japanese guitarist, but what I like about this album is the first one's okay, but this one's quite good because it's got Jeff Scott Soto on vocals, Mike Tirana on drums. I think he's in Bo Nasty and lots of other bands as well. But yeah, it's actually pretty good, and it's produced and arranged by Dana Strum. I quite liked his production. Of course, he produced Vinnie Vincent, I think, helped with the production on that and with Slaughter. But yeah, that's Cooney 31, number 31. I guess you could argue, is that a band name? Because that's like the guy's last name, but I'm going to count that. And so there's a few other things like that will be coming out where it's like the person's last name, but I'm going to count that as a band name. Right, so number 30, Omen. This is Escape to Nowhere. Again, probably another band I would like to check out a little bit more, especially the stuff they released prior to this. This is probably not one of their, one of the fan favorite sort of albums from them, but I quite like it because it's produced by, it's got production by Paul O'Neill, who of course is most well known for being with Trans-Siberian Orchestra and also the Sabotage producer, worked with Badlands as well. Yeah, some good songs on here. It's not easy. That's a good one. But yeah, I do want to get a bit more familiar with their older material also. But yeah, really good solid stuff, 80s metal. Now, 29 is tough. And now that's the one band I don't actually have a physical copy of anything. I used to own their debut album on vinyl, and yeah, I actually sold it. Not that I didn't like it, but at the time, this was a few years ago, it was worth quite a bit of money. So I thought, do I keep it or do I sell it? And at the time, you could make a bit of money selling that album. So and it has been reissued. So maybe I'll pick it up. But the only problem is it's not so much that it's expensive. The reissue is expensive, but the shipping from the States to here in New Zealand is quite expensive. And so anyway, I'm not going to talk too much about Tough because I actually am going to be guesting on Peter Kerr's Rock Daydream Nation sometime soon, and we'll be talking about Tough's first album. So I'll save that for then. All right, so number 28, Rocco. So that's another German band, I think, these guys. Rocco, that's their first album. I've actually got both their albums. It's their second album, Open Invitation. I think there's only 2 albums. They're both really good. If you like your Bonfire, another German band, Bonfire, if you like them, worth checking out. 27, Deer. So they've put out quite a few albums, but I'm not so familiar with their more recent stuff, but this is their first album, Out of the Silence. I don't mind it. It's not actually that heavy, but I do like Heartbreaker. That's a really good song. I guess the main guy here is Darren. He's the sort of he used to be, of course, in Thin Lizzy, Darren Wharton. He's on vocals and played keyboards in Thin Lizzy as well. But the second album, which is I think they got Keith Olsen producing this one. I think this one's a bit better actually. Blood from Stone. But yeah, like I say, there's been other albums as well since those two, but I haven't really checked those out. I've heard them a little bit online, but one of those bands I sort of want to probably dig into a little bit more. So that was 27. Coming in number 26, something a little bit different. And you're going to probably find as we go through this list that it's not all just 80s hard rock. Or hair metal. There's more modern stuff as well. So this is a band called OTEP. It's female fronted. She's done quite a few albums. It's sort of alternative metal, new metal. I actually quite like it when she sort of incorporates some hip hop into it as well. Actually, my favorite song of this one is Boss. But yeah, this is the only one I've got on vinyl. I've got a couple of their first couple of albums on CD, but yeah, Boss. That's my go-to song from this album. So that's at 26. Number 25, back to the 80s. Vamp. Well, is it 80s? I think it's 89. Yeah, Vamp and the Rich Don't Rock. I think I've shown this album quite a bit on my channel for whatever reason. So we'll move on, but one and done album, but really good. So sometimes it's kind of hard to sort of judge your favorite band. Do I like this band more? They've only put out one album, but the one album that they have put out, I do really like. So yeah, I'm going to put that one in at 25, The Rich Don't Rock. 24, another one and done album, and another German band. This one is Laos, female fronted as well. Again, really good album. It's a bit of a surprise it wasn't a bit more successful. But yeah, it's really well produced. Sounds good, commercial, but yeah, still rocks. And I think it came out in 1990. Yeah, but we want it. So yeah, Laos at 24. Number 23, Vain, the band Vain. This is their album No Respect. And it's probably quite an appropriate title because they just really didn't get the respect I feel like they deserved. They put them in the love-hate sort of category as sort of like they should have been bigger. They're probably not, for me, they're not as good as Love-Hate, but they've got a similar sort of sound, and I think they're very good band. And they've actually released quite a few albums. They had an album that they recorded not long after this that wasn't released since it has been reissued. And there's actually Davey Vain, he's the vocalist. He's put out quite a few albums actually. He's kept the band going and kept the discography continuing through the 90s and into the 2000s I think. But I'm only really familiar with this album. I mean, I've heard little things from the other albums, but yeah, and I really like what I've heard actually too from the other albums. I just haven't had a chance to really get into it. So it's potentially possible that although it's at 23, it could go higher. Number 22, it's a great band. Again, probably another band I need to spend more time with because I'm not familiar with all of their albums. And they've got a massive discography, but this is the band Riot. So this is Thundersteel, the 30th anniversary edition. It's probably one of my favorite Riot albums, but like I say, I'm not familiar with all of them. But yeah, I just love Flight of the Warrior, Sign of the Crimson Storm, Blood Street, really good, and the privilege of power. That was the follow up. That's another good one as well. Yeah, lots of good songs on it. So yeah, right, coming in at 22. Now more modern, but well, modern. They came out I think early 2000s, but more modern band coming up now. This is a UK band called In Me. This is the best of live in London. Sort of alternative rock, alternative metal. Yeah, this is the only one I've got on vinyl, but I've got quite a few of their CDs. Here's a CD. This is Daydream Anonymous. I feel like it's sort of, post grunge, alternative rock, alternative metal kind of sound, which I do. Yes, we're checking out the UK band. Been around for a while, put out quite a few albums, I think. And yeah, it's possibly there's an album or two I haven't checked out yet. All right, we're into the top 20. So number 20, band called Lion. This has Kai Swan on vocals and Doug Eldridge, of course, on guitar. This one is their first album, Dangerous Attraction, which is good, but I think I actually possibly prefer Trouble in Angel City. But they're both really good albums. But just the two albums. They did an EP as well, and they're probably most well known maybe for being on the Transformers soundtrack. All right, number 19. This might surprise some people that it's up this high, but they've actually got some really good songs and some good solid albums. So, with all these bands, I just didn't necessarily get all their albums out, but I did for this band. Just happened to, I might as well just bring them all out. So they may even have more albums than this. I don't know, but I've got all their 4 albums from the 80s. In fact, this one might be 1990, but it's this one, Matter of Attitude. I think it's just self-titled, Cruising for Bruising, and Scratch and Sniff. Yeah, this one's 1990, but I guess Fate most well known for having Hank Sherman initially in the band as guitarist, who was initially in Merciful Fate, and quite a different sound, sort of more of a hair metal type sound. But yeah, it's pretty good. Number 18, I went with a band, came out in 1997 with this album. And when I heard it, I thought it was just fantastic. The band is called Snot, and it's self-titled, and it came out on Geffen in '97. This is the music on vinyl reissue. But the vocalist Lynn Straight unfortunately died in a car accident, and that obviously stopped any momentum the band had. I really think they could have been. They could have been huge. They were getting some critical acclaim. They're kind of in that sort of Korn, Limp Bizkit, new metal kind of area, but they were quite original with it, I think. And like I say, it came out in '97, so they weren't following any trends. But yeah, unfortunately, Lynn Straight died in a car accident, and I think that's his dog, and I think the dog was in the car accident as well. So sadly, the dog passed away also. They did release a follow-up, which was more of a tribute album. It's called Straight Up. It had like bands like Seven Dust, Korn on there. And I think they then did try and get the band back together with different vocalists. I think Tommy Vex was a vocalist for them for a while, but it just didn't really quite work out. But yeah, their first album is definitely worth checking out. So I had to put it up quite high. That's number 18. Number 17, a band quite well known, had quite a few hits in the sort of early 90s and actually all the way through the 90s. Band called Live. Now this is Throwing Copper. It's been my favourite live album. In fact, really, after this, and there's an album before that one as well, which didn't really do much for me, but I did like Throwing Copper. I felt like after that Throwing Copper, they kind of, I started to lose interest quite a bit. It's their second one, it's their third one. That's their second one. I've got it on CD as well. That's their third one. That's their fourth one. That's their fifth one. I don't have their first one, and then there's the best of. And I think there's been a couple more as well. They had a change of vocalist also, but I think they got back with their original vocalist now. In fact, I think Live recently just toured New Zealand with Incubus, but but yeah, so they're still around, but yeah, they were pretty big in the '90s, and yeah, like I say, I did especially enjoy their second album, Throwing Copper. All right, at number 16 now, again, it's a bit of a debatable one. Is this a band name? But I decided I will count people's names if they're using it sort of as a band name. So I went with Doro. So Doro. I mean, yeah, I don't think I've quite brought everything out here. I've got everything from Doro, of course, and Warlock as well. But yeah, she's true at heart. Through the '90s, she was still putting out stuff. Angels Never Die, Love Me in Black. Um, you know, uh, wasn't probably easy for her in the '90s. She's still going strong now and probably more popular than ever. So she stuck at it. I think she did change her sound through the '90s a little bit. When that sort of hard rock metal sound wasn't quite so popular, but I've enjoyed all her albums, some more than others. But yeah, so Doro at number 16. Number 15, I'm going with a band called, might be unfamiliar to some people who watch my channel, a band called Floor. This is the only album of theirs I've got on vinyl. It's called Divided We Fall. Came out in 2016. Sort of alternative metal, quite sort of new, maybe even new metal. Their first album actually did quite well. This is their first album Through the Eyes. They ended up on the Ozfest, circuit there, and did pretty well. Endangered Species was their second album that also did pretty well. But yeah, then actually, probably their second album didn't do as well as expected, and they split up. And then I'm not sure what order this goes in. I think possibly the vocalist Chris Volz went and formed Five Bolt Main, yeah, which is pretty much it's very similar to Floor. Sounds very similar. And then he also did it. I'm just showing these guys, so I might as well. He also did a solo album as well. But then got back together with Floor. But and to my knowledge, still going. They're still going. They released a covers album not that long ago. So, but yeah, their first two albums, and even this one here that I had showed you before, the only one I've got on vinyl, Divided We Fall, really good. Really good stuff. I like it. Okay, so a similar kind of a band coming in at number 14 is a band called Soil. Well, they came out around about the same time, that sort of, late 90s, early 2000s. That's the only thing I've got on vinyl, probably the only thing they've released there's no album of theirs on vinyl, unfortunately. It's a 10-inch single for Redefine. But yeah, I've got all their albums on CD. Probably their best is Scars. That's their first album. Well, actually, no, it's not. There's an album before this one, so this is actually their second one. I don't have their first one. I'm not that big a fan of that one, but yeah, this one is great. Produced by Johnny K. Halo is a good song. It was one of the big singles, and then this was the follow-up, Redefine. They did have a change of vocalists, so I think I had a change of vocalists for True Self. The vocalist from the original vocalist from Soil ended up joining Drowning Pool for a while, but he's actually now back in Soil, and actually and then he left Drowning Pool, but now he's back in Drowning Pool, so I think he's doing double duty now. He's in Drowning Pool and in Soil. Right, so that was number 14. Right, so I've got a big stack. Bring these ones up. Okay. Number 13, I'm going to go with Icon. So we're going back to the 80s again. So this is their last album that they did, second album and debut album. Yeah, like I said, I'm not getting every album out for all these artists, but pretty much have for Icon. I've talked about them before on my channel. Really good hard rock, 80s hard rock. They did have a different vocalist for their third album. For me, probably my favorite is Night of the Crime, because it's actually growing on me more and more over time. Really like this one. But I also like the third. The first one's pretty standard sort of 80s metal. It's okay. Some people I think this one's their favorite, but I think my Right Between the Eyes would be, would be my second favorite probably, and that's pretty close between these two. Yeah, both great albums, I think. Underrated band, but yeah. So that was number 13 of the bands with 4 letters in their name. Number 12, we're going with a band called Dope. I do actually have a couple of Dope albums on vinyl. So this is American Apathy, and this is Group Therapy. These came out sort of they came out sort of early 2000s. Yeah, and I've actually quite enjoyed Dope. Got their CDs here as well. This is their debut album. This one probably came out around 98, something like that. It's when that new metal scene was really blowing up. And yeah, they put out an album a couple of years ago. The last few albums I haven't really been into that much. Edsel, I think, is the vocalist name. Edsel Dope. I'm pretty sure he's now the new vocalist for Static X, although it's not advertised that way. He's just called Zero. But yeah, I think it's pretty much, although it's supposed to be a secret, I think most people know that he is now the vocalist in Static X. Right, so that was number 12. Number 11 is a band called, I've only got one vinyl album. It's a band called Vast. Really good. It's sort of got, when it first came out, it was kind of compared to Nine Inch Nails, and there's some comparisons there, a bit of electronica. It doesn't get super heavy. In fact, especially too, some of the albums after this, it's kind of more like really kind of chill out kind of stuff at times, but he's got a great voice. Musically, really interesting ideas. This is Music for People. Yeah, I think this was the second album, so it's an album before this one. Only one I've got on vinyl, but yeah, I think this was the first one. Visual Audio Sensory Theatre. That was the first one. It's the second one I've also got on CD. But yeah, I think I've got pretty much everything. I'm not sure. I could be missing some things, but these ones are lesser known. April and Nude. They might be quite hard to get now. I don't know. I'm not sure what he's up to now. But I do know that Rowan Robertson, who of course was probably best known as at one time being in the guitars for Dio, he played with Vast from about 98 to 2000. But yeah, it doesn't sound like Dio at all. It's sort of like, yeah, that sort of alternative rock, electronic rock, Nine Inch Nails kind of thing. But if you haven't heard them, check them out. All right, number 10, which was top 10. Initially, this was just going to be my top 10 bands with 4 letters in their name. So let's get into the top 10 now. And at number 10, it's a band called Amen. KC Chaos is the vocalist. And this is like, it's like, sort of like what I would consider like punk metal. It's like, it's quite heavy. It's just very raw, very aggressive. Yeah, probably because it was produced by Ross Robinson and the time it came out, it might have even been put in the new metal category, but it doesn't really sound new metal at all. Really, really good stuff. So I've got this is the only one I think you can get on vinyl. The only album you can get on vinyl, unfortunately. But I mean, I like them so much. I got the CD as well because it's got 4 bonus tracks on it, and I've got 2 copies of We Have Come for Your Parents because one of them's a 2 CD edition, and it's got it's got some bonus tracks as well. They actually have a lot of B-sides, and I do actually have some 7-inch singles as well, but I didn't get those out. It's live album, and I think this was the final album, which was a shame, but because that's a long time ago this came out, maybe 2004. Death Before Music. And I'm not quite sure what he's up to, but it's a bit of a shame because I think KC Chaos I'm talking about. I know that the band itself continuously was changing, but it's really KC Chaos's band. But yeah, fantastic band. So that was number 10. Number 9, I went with a band called Cold. Again, they're produced by Ross Robinson, or not all of them, but their first album, which for me is probably their best album. It's produced by Ross Robinson. It's got a special thanks to Fred Durst from Limp Bizkit. He's the A&R guy actually for them, but it sounds nothing like Limp Bizkit. Yes, it's a bit alternative metal, new metal. This is probably my favorite. 13 Ways to Bleed on Stage. You could put it in with they've actually got the guy from Stained guests on this. You could compare it a little bit to Stained, I suppose. post grunge, that sort of stuff. Different Kind of Pain, that's a pretty good album. And The Spider, I think they came out before Different Kind of Pain. This was actually probably a bit of a minor hit for them. Stupid Girl, bit of a minor hit, but they've put out a couple more albums that I don't have, that just for whatever reason didn't really do it for me. But Scooter's the vocalist, I think he's got some great vocals, and interesting. They got a good original sound, I think. Enjoy them. So they're coming in at number 9. Number 8, a band I'm sure most people know about, Rat. This is my go-to Rat album, Invasion of Your Privacy. I love this album. I'm not actually that big a fan of their other albums. For whatever reason, this one just really clicked with me. Here's their greatest hits. But yeah, for me, this is the go-to album, Invasion of Your Privacy. A bit of a shame that they weren't able to sort of stay together. I mean, they did reform in the 90s and then reformed again in the early 2000s and put out an album. But yeah, really, their heyday was the 80s. All right, number 7, a band called Korn. I'm sure most people know about this band. Now, they've put out quite a few albums. I'm more of a fan of their first sort of 4 albums, I think it is, about 4. After that, I've maybe been 1 or 2, haven't been too bad, but I've lost quite a bit of interest. But I love the first album. This is a 12-inch single, For Good God, from the second album, so Life is Peachy. I could show quite a bit of Korn, actually, but there we go. Got that one. One of the albums that they released after Issues. I didn't like Issues. I didn't like Untouchables, but I did like this one. Take a Look in the Mirror. I did like that one, so I've got that one on vinyl. But I've got here we go. I've got CDs as well, Live and Rare, and this is Issues. I didn't like this one so much. But their first 3 albums, fantastic. Really good, and groundbreaking sound, quite original. A lot of people copied it, I guess you could say, but very original sound, I thought, for the time. All right, so that was number 7. At number 6, I'm going with a band called Bush. They were quite big, quite popular, of course, in the sort of when grunge sort of came in. I guess they have a bit of a grunge sound, I suppose. And 16 Stone. That was their first album, and really love this album. I think it's probably my favorite. But what I have to say about Bush is they are, for me, a very consistent band. So they've been consistently good, I feel, since basically the early 90s. Now, I think they did have a brief time where they sort of broke up. I mean, it's basically, the band is Gavin Rossdale, right? But I think they split up maybe early 2000s, something like that. Gavin Rossdale went out, formed a band called Institute, I think it was called, and then he put out a solo album. But now he's back with Bush. And they're actually putting out they've been putting out some really good albums. So albums throughout the 2000s, like Sea of Memories, Man on the Run, Golden State might be more. That might have been the last one they did before they broke up, actually, and then got back together. But let's see, what have I got here? Yeah, so they even did a remix album, Deconstructed. It's pretty good. Science of Things, and this is not their most recent one, but this is the one before their most recent one. This one came out in 2020. It's really good. I really love this one. So their most recent album's okay, but The Kingdom is really good. Check that one out. So that's why they're quite high, because they've just got so many good albums, and enjoyed them over a long period of time. And my number 5 band is Verse on them as well. Been going since the 80s, and very consistent. Even the stuff they're putting out now is still good. A lot of these other bands that came out in the 80s or 90s, they were great, but they're not so much now. But this band's still very good. I'm talking about The Cult. So this is the singles. But I've got plenty of. Here we go. I think it's here. Yeah, I've got quite a bit of The Cult from even recent times. Not sure what this album's called. Yeah, Choice of Weapon. They just reissued this, the self-titled. They just reissued the self-titled not that long ago. That's really good. and I don't know if no CDs, but yeah, I mean everything by the Cult is fantastic. I didn't get everything, I didn't get all their albums out, but yeah, really good, consistent band for me. So the Cult at number 5. At number 4, you might have got a glimpse of it because I accidentally picked it up before. But yes, my number 4 band with 4 letters in their name is Kiss. I mean, what else do I need to say? Do I need to say anything? A band that was just retired, maybe. But yeah, been going since the 70s, and I'm probably more of a fan of the 80s Kiss, to be honest with you, which is probably not the common thing. I mean, it's close. I think 70s Kiss is fantastic, but I guess when I was growing up, I was into the Kiss in the 80s. So this is the best of Kiss, which, I mean, it features some 80s stuff. Even got 90s stuff like Psycho Circus, which is probably an Unholy. Psycho Circus and Unholy, probably my 2 favorite songs from the 90s Kiss. But really, from the 90s up to now, I've not really been that interested in Kiss, I have to say. But yeah, 80s and 70s, fantastic. So many great albums. So yeah, there we go. Smashes, Thrashes, and Hits as well. That covers all their sort of 80s and 70s stuff. Right. So yeah. So that was number 4. Number 3. Similar band, going since the 70s through the 80s. And it's a similar situation where I go, well, do I prefer this band from the 70s or from the 80s? And it's a real difficult one. But I think probably for this band, I prefer their 70s stuff. But it's very close. I'm talking about AC/DC. So this is their most recent album. I've got to be honest, again, just a little bit like Kiss. 70s and 80s, AC/DC, fantastic. I start losing a bit of interest in the 90s, and yeah, their recent albums, not so much. I thought this one's not too bad, but yeah, for me, AC/DC, 70s and 80s, slight preference with the Bon Scott stuff. I think I'd probably slightly prefer the 70s AC/DC, which I'm more of an 80s guy usually, but here's Who Made Who, which was a bit of a compilation. And yeah, this is Bon Scott and his final album with AC/DC, Highway to Hell. But yeah, it's just hard to beat the AC/DC albums from the 70s and 80s. And a lot of people probably thought some of their 80s albums weren't perhaps as that great, especially mid 80s. But I enjoyed the albums like Blow Up Your Video and Fly on the Wall, that sort of stuff. I actually kind of enjoyed those albums, but yeah, definitely I think 70s AC/DC is probably my favorite. But Back in Black was a great album, wasn't it? Anyway, number 2 is a band called Tool. So there we go. That's their debut EP. Then the album. This when I first heard Tool. This is the album that I heard. And it was just like, it blew me away. It's just, it's just quite a different sound. I've been listening to a lot of hair metal, and then I hear this, and it's like, this is really great. They did change their sound. Perhaps it got probably more progressive after that. For whatever reason, Anima, which is a fantastic album, and I've got it somewhere if I can find it. Yeah, here it is, with the cool cover there, but they've never. Well, it has actually been released on vinyl, but it's like $1 million to get it. And they haven't reissued it on vinyl for whatever reason, I don't know. But this is their 3rd album, and I was super excited when this one came out. I remember I was going to the record shop on the day of release to buy it, and the guy, when I bought it, he said to me, "Oh, you should have come in a few days ago. I would have let you listen to it." I wouldn't have bought it earlier, but I could have at least listened to it. But I said, "Oh, right, okay, cool. I didn't even know, But yeah, I was such a big fan. This was one of the first bands. Like, I got on the internet and joined fan clubs and stuff like that. And yeah, I was really into it. This took a bit of getting used to. I do like this album, but I probably prefer Undertow is probably my favorite. And the EP even as well, I think is really good. And then since then there's this one here. So they've got this one on vinyl, and I don't know if 10,000 Days is on vinyl, but I don't think it is. But again, They always come up with interesting packaging. Their latest album I haven't bothered buying, to be honest with you. I don't dislike it, but I don't love it. I didn't like the fact that, when it first came out, you had to pay so much money if you wanted to buy it. I just thought, packaging is cool, but no one wants well, I don't really want to pay $200 for one album just because it's got amazing packaging. So yeah, I don't know. Even now, if you want to buy it, it's gone down in price, but still not cheap. So yeah, I haven't bothered, but I do like the band. But again, probably one of those bands that loved them when they first came out and just like them now. Not the case though with my number one band. Love them from the 80s, loved them in the 90s, loved them in the 2000s. They don't put out quite as much as what they were putting out, but they've been very consistent, and there's only probably one album that I don't like that much. Everything else, all their other albums, I really like or love. I only got one album out because I've got so many from this band. But yeah, my number one band with 4 letters in the name is Wasp. This is Double Live Assassins, of course, but yeah, lots of albums. They're so good. Still enjoy playing their old albums, their new albums. I know that Blackie Lawless is back touring again, or he was anyway. And certainly one band I've never seen live. I'd love to see them live. Obviously, it might not be as good as what they were back in the day, but fantastic band. So there we go. That's my number one band with 4 letters in the name. On another day, this whole list could be a little bit different. The rankings could be a bit different, but that's just what I came up with today. So gives you a bit of an idea about some of the bands that I like. Of course, there's lots of other bands I like, but they don't have 4 letters in their name. So that's the way it worked out with this one. So there we go. My top 40 bands with 4 letters in their name. I hope you found that interesting. Leave a comment. Maybe I've missed some really good bands that have 4 letters in their names I should know about. So if so, let me know. Hit the thumbs up if you enjoyed it. If you haven't subscribed and you want to be aware of new videos that I'm putting out, hit the subscribe button. And I'll catch you later. All right, see ya.